As per usual, just wait for you all to come on. Hello everybody, just comment if you can. PayPal.me. I'm just putting a comment on as well with the link for you, should you wish to donate. There we go. 42 watchers, hiya, you alright there? If somebody could just comment for me please, and also if you can just comment and let me know that you can hear me please. Hi Kat, hi Keris, hi Connor, hey Kelly, Jennifer, hey Michaela, hiya Karen, hi Amanda, hello Kate, hope you're well. You can hear me, fantastic, thank you Karen for that. Excellent, well, welcome to the horrible histories of medicine, dentistry and hospitals. Now, I don't know how long this chat will go on for tonight. I've spent the last 3 days writing everything down. However, as we know, sometimes it goes really quickly, sometimes it doesn't. So I hope you have a jolly good laugh at what I have to tell you anyway. Before I do, I'm going to quickly let you know that if the video should cut out at any point because of bad signal, just come out, refresh the page and then come back in, and that generally brings the video back up. If it does go off completely for some strange reason, don't panic. What I'll do is I'll run into the next room where I've got another internet connection and I'll redo the video, but I won't start from the beginning obviously, I'll just reset it so you can watch, okay? So don't panic if it suddenly cuts out. There you go, big chat done. Okay, so just for those of you who have never seen me before, my name is Mackenzie and I run the Shadows of York Ghost Walk. Unfortunately at the moment with the pandemic we can't operate, and so I've been doing all these little talks about ghost stories and horrible history. If you've not seen the videos before, they are available on the Facebook page and some of them are available on YouTube as well. Hi everyone! So there you go. Now then, I've kind of done this in order of time frames, but I've just made notes really of all the different cures, so there's no particular stories as such, okay? But I thought we would make a start with the Vikings, because the Vikings, we've all been watching the series, haven't we, and we've been watching The Last Kingdom and all that sort of stuff, so I thought, yeah, we'll chuck in a bit about the Vikings. So, Viking cures were quite limited. Mostly it was praying to the gods and worshipping the gods, and believe it or not, making animal sacrifices to the gods to ensure good health as well as good crops and things. Oh yeah, by the way, it's daylight! The change of the clocks, eh? Oh yeah, and say hello to Arthur. I have a person behind me. Hi Arthur! So yeah, the Vikings would pray to gods and also make sacrifices to the gods. But also, studies show that despite that they didn't have, you know, dental back then and doctors and things like that, they actually had quite good teeth. So today, we always go to the dentist, and unfortunately many of us need the odd filling or a bit of work doing. But when you look at really old skulls, you notice that most of them have their teeth, and you think, how? Mainly this is because sugar hadn't been discovered yet. So they didn't have sugar in their diet. The only sugars they had were the sugars that were found in vegetables and in fruits, obviously, being the main one. So apart from the odd cavities and things like that, their teeth were pretty good. So there you go. Try and look after your teeth, guys. But we'll talk about teeth a little bit more later on. Now, oh, hang on a second. Obviously, other cures, they included herbal remedies, some stuff that we actually still use today. Believe it or not, there was a herb called horehound, I think I pronounced that right, horehound, and it's a herb that is still used even today in cough medicines or cough sweets. All the way from back then. Isn't that incredible? Bet they had smaller waistlines too. Yeah, they had a better diet because they ate, you know, veg, I suppose not veg, but you know, greenery, but they did eat a lot of meat, so there was a lot of that. Another way that they used to diagnose you, believe it or not, they used to taste the blood of their victims. So if you were very poorly and you had a gash or a wound from an infection somehow, usually like a sore, or if you had just been in battle, they want to see how bad you are, and they're going to do this by, yes, tastes like blood. They're going to see how thick it is, what the quality of it is, apparently. I don't know. Never going to try that myself, and I don't recommend it, so don't. But yeah, they used to taste blood just to see how it was. Amputations. Now, obviously, we didn't have anaesthetic until the Victorian period, so amputations from the Vikings all the way up to then was not a good thing. But in the Viking era, even though they did know how to sew and stitch, they couldn't really stitch up a really, really big wound. So if you've lost your leg in battle, or I should say you're about to lose your leg, then they're going to have to amputate, but they're not going to have time to stitch you up because you're going to lose a lot of blood. So instead, what they used to do was scald you. So as they're hacking your limbs off, they're going to give you a scalding to try and cauterize the blood. So there you have it. Is she a witch? No, just a costume. So that is the Viking period. Oh, and also, Vikings, their life expectancy was really bad. Children, unfortunately, really had a high mortality rate. So if they made it past the age of 12, then chances were they were going to live. But your life expectancy back then was 35 to 40. Women tended to live a little bit longer than the men. Otherwise, your life expectancy was 35 to 40. So most of us here are nearly dead, me included. There is some evidence of some skeletons actually living beyond that age. Sorry, skeletons, Vikings, beg your pardon, Vikings living beyond that age. But otherwise, no. And that is largely down to diseases and diets. Let's fast forward into the medieval Tudor period, because there wasn't an awful lot in between that wasn't basically the same. So in the medieval Tudor period, we believed... Lynn, you're gone then. Thankfully not now. In the medieval and Tudor periods and after, we used to believe in something called the four humours. So for some of you might be thinking chakras. Chakras, if you're into that sort of thing, then you know that there's lots of different levels. With the humours, there was just four, and the four elements were blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile. So if these humours come out of sync, then you are obviously ill. So it's your job to try and keep these humours intact, and a nice balancing act. They're going to know how well you are just by looking at the colour of your pee. That's something we still do today, funny enough. But yeah, even back then, they used to check your wee. However, when they were checking it, they didn't just look at the colour and the thickness. They would have a jolly good sniff, but also maybe just taste it. Oh! Yep, they would taste your wee just to see how well you were. Ugh. Oh, turn the page. Yeah, loads of notes, sorry. We do, Karen, we do. Unbelievably, I was shocked when I found this. In the medieval times and the Tudor times, apparently they did, despite what you may read about Henry VIII and things like that, and the higher classes being lazy, not all of them, they actually did believe in having good exercise, plenty sleep, and a good diet. So apart from the likes of kings and queens and people that we knew who had a really bad diet, in the medieval and Tudor period, they actually did believe in looking after themselves to keep the four humours in check. Whew. Oh, and another thing, monasteries. Now, monasteries, obviously we think of monks and nuns, and they would look after some people who were ill. They were religious, they prayed to God and various archangels and the saints. but they also spent a lot of time growing herbs. So a lot of these herbs are still used today. So for example, ginger is still used for bad stomachs. Snail slime is used for burns even today. And licorice for coughs. So yeah, a lot of things that we had from way back then is still used today. Another one is, of course, that they used to believe that if they prayed to certain saints, that would help you. That was a very big thing in the monasteries. And here's another one for the ladies. Girls. Childbearing is terrible, isn't it? You know, really, really bad unless you get a really good dose of painkillers. But even then, it's touch and go. Back then, there was nothing like that. So what did they come up with to help you? I'll tell you. Birth girdles. I actually got this one from English Heritage. So basically, what they do is they draw pictures of saints and wrap them around you whilst you're screaming and carrying on. Because apparently this is going to help you. It really didn't. But you know what? That's all we had, so that's what we believed in. Birth girdles. I think if anybody was strapping something around me whilst I was really hot, I'd be screaming them to get off. Major surgery was done by a barber. Yeah, barbers were and blacksmiths were the people that you went to for basically all your dentist treatments and things. So we didn't have dentists and we didn't have doctors. So if you want an amputation or if you want your teeth pulled, you go see the barber. And once again, there is no pain relief. Now, believe it or not, as well as varying diseases and the Black Death, that one of the biggest killers back in the medieval and Tudor times, and a little bit thereafter as well, was teeth. Yeah, teeth are actually pretty deadly. So, you might be laughing, it's true. Teeth is really, really dangerous. So, if you get a cavity and it starts to infester and then rot, we need a fill-in, don't we? But unfortunately, if it then becomes an abscess or just becomes infected, without the medicines that we have today, back then there wasn't anything like that. And so, unfortunately, even if you went and had your teeth pulled, your tooth pulled, some of that tooth might still be inside, and so it's infected, it becomes an abscess, and then it will give you the shakes and shivers, you will then have fevers, and eventually the infection will just fester in your body, yep, bit of blood poisoning, and then you die. Teeth are a good killer. So, for those of you who hate the dentist, just buckle up and go, alright? It's for the good of your health. Your face falls off. Yeah, could do. Just make sure I've not missed anything out on that one. Oh yes, one of the things that they used to do to clean their teeth was they believed that they could use sugar. When sugar became more popular, they actually did the worst thing possible, but they used to use sugar and other various powders to rub on their teeth, thinking it's cleaning them, but actually it made it so much worse. And then the Tudors came up with this book, which they then published. So for anybody who could read, in every household they would have this medical book. And it was a generalised medical book to tell you how to cure various ailments throughout your life in the household. Unfortunately, many of these cures were utter rubbish. They were not published by a medical practitioner or anybody who actually knew what they were talking about. So if you ever pick up a book from back then, don't use what they what they recommend. I wrote some of these down. These are quite grim. A cure for palsy, okay? A cure for palsy is you get a fox, you kill it, cut it open, and place its internal organs and things, probably along with the skin of the fox, in a pot of water. You then add a few various herbs and spices, mix it all up, and then you bathe it on the patient. The smell of the fox is good for the palsy. How barbaric. But yeah, apparently the smell of this dead fox that you've just mangled up, butchered and put into a pot of water, stirred it up, is going to cure your palsy. Of course, we know that's complete rubbish, so poor fox. The other thing that they used to believe in with regards to that is that they used to think that because your spirits are low and you're dying or from any ailment, then the spirit of an animal would lift your spirits. Logic for you. Of course, that's not true. Now then, gentlemen, this one's a bit delicate. Gentlemen, a remedy for an STD. You basically kill a chicken, cut it open, and dip your privy parts in it. Yeah, that's true, honestly. You kill a chicken, open it up, and then do that. Because that's going to cure your STD, gents. Ladies, don't let your boyfriend cook chicken ever again, alright? Now into the 1497, there was a great horrible epidemic that came along, and it was basically called syphilis. It comes out in the pox, so horrible markings upon your face, ulcers, scabs, pus, everything that would just burst. Your nose used to literally wear away and disappear and drop off. You'd be in horrendous pain, and there's lots of skulls and skeletons out there who have clearly had syphilis, and the syphilis disease used to weather away at the bones, so you'd have horrific pain in your bones. The skull literally was developing holes inside of it, and that is what syphilis does. It's a horrible disease that does not go away and doesn't get better. At least it didn't back then. So it's called the pox, not chicken pox, pox. Now what happened was, well, we don't actually know even today where syphilis originated from. It just turned up one day, and we knew that it was being transferred by doing the deed. I've got to be careful because I have children watching this. Doing the deed. And in those days, even though everybody did it, especially to recreate, then yeah, it was classed as a sin. Doing that was a sin. So if you got syphilis, and the evidence is obviously there, then you would be cast out of society. People didn't want to know you because you were dirty. You'd been around, you'd done this thing and caught this disease. And they believed that it was caused by the wrath of God. God has done this to you, and you deserve to be cast out. So to stop yourself from being cast out from society, because another thing it used to do is it used to make you go bald, and it also could cause blindness. Oh, hi, I'm Matt, who's just coming in to see what was discussed. Matt's one of my friends. Now be nice, Matt, keep it clean. So yeah, to stop yourself from being cast aside, you had to cover up the fact that you had syphilis. So you'd put makeup on to cover up the pox. You'd wear wigs, and also this is the funny one. You can look this up online. They used to buy fake noses, so like little metal noses that you would put in place of your own nose to hide the fact that yours was missing. Because that's not suspicious at all, is it? Your nose looks a bit funny. Why? It'd be a great party trick though. Hey, look at this. So yeah, not good if you got syphilis, and even worse than that, some people died pretty quickly. Some people didn't and could live with it for the rest of their lives. So that could be for the next 20 years. So you'd be in horrific pain, unbearable agony whilst you had syphilis, and there was nothing you could do to ail that pain, get rid of that pain. Although in later times they did believe there might be a cure. This is probably another big killer as well as being a cure. Mercury. Mercury, or quicksilver as it was also known, was often it's not very good at seeping into the skin, so they had to literally grind it into dust and make it into a cream. So you could wear it as a cream, or you could dip it into your clothing and wear it. Or another one, and this is for the gentlemen as well, is that they could inject it directly into down there. So you could have mercury directly injected into it to try and cure you from the syphilis. Unfortunately though, mercury going into your system is going to cause you to vomit and eventually death. Not only that though, mercury, if you inhale it, so if you was actually the person administering this mercury onto your patient, you could die just from inhaling the fumes, and it's a very, very potent smell. So you could get dementia, or just memory loss in general, or yes, of course, death itself. So mercury was a really bad one, but funny enough, mercury was used well into the Victorian period in various medicines. They didn't learn, did they, until really late on. Oh, one for the kiddies, or for anybody who caught measles. Now then guys, if your youngsters catch measles, don't you worry, all they've got to do is share a bed with a sheep. Yep, share a bed with a sheep, it'll cure it. I don't know why they believed in that, but apparently if you share a bed with a sheep, then it'll cure your measles. That was just a quick one. Oh, now then, we're going into the Stewart's period now. So in the Stewart times, if you've got a really sore stomach, and you can probably see these on some of the horrible history videos as well, but I did look into them just to make sure that they're correct. So if you get a really bad stomach, don't you worry, all we can do is put a really huge stone on top of you and flatten the stomach and get rid of whatever ails you. Yeah, it's not going to do you any good, is it? Crush your stomach and internal organs, that's going to make you feel a lot worse. Alright, I'm going to try and tell you this one without giggling. It's going to be impossible. Okay. I am going to use a swear word. It's not the worst swear word in the world, but it's one that you'll understand. I only found this out the other day. Okay, so you've heard the term blowing smoke up your arse. If you don't know what it means, it means that you're sucking up to somebody. You don't like them, but you're flattering them, okay? In a nutshell, that's what it means. Where it actually comes from is from the Stewart times. So basically, when you basically collapsed and you was near death, or this was usually used for a drowning victim. So when they've hauled your body out of the water and they want to resuscitate you, instead of doing CPR, because they didn't really know about that as such, what they used to do was literally blow smoke up your ass. I'm sorry. So what they used to do was get your body, get a pipe, up it went, attached it to a fumigator, got some bellows, and off they went. I'm sorry, I thought it was brilliant when I read that. Now, they believed that the smoke was going to dry you out, keep you warm, and apparently tobacco, they thought, increases the heart rate, so it's going to start you up again. How undignified. And even better than this, near riversides, particularly by the Thames in London. Oh, I'm really sorry if you can hear a cat. Yeah, hang on a minute. Brett, stop the cat from yelling, please. Sorry. Yeah, even better than that. What down by the riverside, particularly down by the Thames, instead of having what we have today, a defibrillator, I can't say it very well, shock you awake, yeah? Instead of having one of them, they used to have these kits. A pipe, a fumigator, and some bellows, so that if they had any drowning victims, they could just get straight into resuscitating them. Occasionally they used to put the pipe up the nose or down the throat, but they thought it worked best up the bum. I'm glad that's over with. Whew. Oh, I'm really sorry. I'll have to sober up from that one. I'm alright now. You don't have to take my word for it. You can go away and look it up yourself. Now then, moving on. Serious face. Moving on. To keep the humours at bay, I'm still laughing. To keep the humours in check, sorry, and to keep diseases and infections away, they used to believe that you just drank your own urine. Yeah, imagine that. So when you go at the loo, just catch it and then bottoms up. There you go. So, I don't recommend it. Please don't do that, whatever you do. Especially you children, don't do it. Do not drink your own urine. It does not cure anything. If anything, it's going to make you feel so much worse. Right, we'll talk about something that's a lot more sobering. Now, I'm don't light a match. I'm not making a joke about our current situation now, guys. Obviously, we all know what's happening with COVID, but in those days, leading all the way up into the 1600s and 1700s, we had the plague, the Black Death, the plague. Now, the plague broke out in London late in 1664, but it really attacked with brute force in 1665, and it killed in London about 1,000 people a week, and by the time it got to about September, it was nearly 7,000 a week. So basically, nearly all the population of London was being destroyed by this disease. And it wasn't until the Great Fire of London in 1666. 666. Have I still got that cold? No, I just have allergies, so I'm always sniffly. I'm really sorry. Yeah, the Great Fire of London in 1666, as devastating as it was, it actually helped get rid of the plague. However, that does not mean that we need a fire right now. It's not going to help us now, okay? But it killed the rats, and rats were the creatures that were spreading the disease and the plague through the fleas on the rats. So that's why it helped. It was mostly contained in London back then, although some people did run away to the country. However, in villages and towns, they kind of learned about quarantining, and so they stopped people from entering. So thanks to that, it didn't spread out as bad as it could have. Most notably, one of the outbreaks, though, took place in Derbyshire, in a little village called Eyam. Eyam is known as the Plague Village, and it's from their sacrifice that stopped the plague from spreading further out and further up north. And it's thanks to their sacrifice that thousands and thousands of lives were saved. And I know that's a really tough subject to talk about, but it's true, that's what they did. And you can actually visit this village and it'll talk about it. It's got a little museum. I do implore you to go visit. It's really, really good. I'd like to go and visit sometime, so when it does reopen, please do. Now, the cures for this disease were as follows. Now, the plague usually starts off with, excuse me to say this, a cough. But that is because your organs are bubbling and rotting inside of you, particularly in the lungs, and you're bleeding internally, and then you start to cough up thick, chunky blood. lymph nodes in your neck, your armpit, and down there, they fill up with pus and blood and become these huge boils, buboes we used to call them, and occasionally they burst. But if they don't burst, then we're going to have to get rid of them. We're going to do this by getting a knife, lancing them off, and then to stop the spread of infection, with the knife, we held it over a flame, make it nice and hot, and then we used to scald you. So that's here, here, down there. Oh! Alternatively, what we used to do was stuff them with herbs, spices, and, get this, poo. Yep, poo. Can be your own, the neighbours, the cats, doesn't matter. Somebody's poop, bandage it all up and it'll cure it, get rid of the disease. You know, poo's good enough for the crops, maybe it's good enough for this. Made it so much worse. Then, of course, your fingertips used to rot black, quite literally, all the way down your hands and in various places like little blotches of bruising, particularly also around your feet and your legs. So if this happens, we're going to rub onions on them, we're going to bathe it in urine, you can drink urine, or even better than that, hop in a bath filled with gin. Yep, gin. You can drink the gin. The gin is good. It's probably the only bit you'd enjoy with the cures in that bit. Oh yes, and rubbing chickens on you. They've got to be alive though. So you've got to pluck them and then stick them on a bubo. So bear that in mind. They're going to put this live chicken on your buboes. It's flapping away at you. Watch the pecking if it's down there, particularly for the fellas. And then save it for later, chaps, if you have got the old STD going on. Lillian, yay, finally the gin, yes. And of course, once again, if you did rot up your hands, your arms, your legs, it's gangrene, it's never going to come back, you're going to have to amputate. And like I said earlier, in those days there is no anaesthetic, no painkillers, nothing. So they're just going to give you a bit of wood to bite down on, get the old hacksaw out and then hack off your limbs. Another cure for the plague, was a bleeding. Now this is a common cure for most things. What we'll do is to find a nice juicy vein, and this is quite painful, get a knife and cut open your veins and give you a bleeding, because apparently they're going to get rid of all that plague-ridden blood and cure you. Problem is, if you don't die from the plague, you die from blood loss. So a less painful method was to buy leeches, but leeches are very, very expensive. So you'd have to really empty your pockets to get a few of these babies. So you get these little leeches and you stick these on your body and they will suck out the blood instead. The problem with leeches, though, is that when they're finished draining your blood, which isn't very long, it's a few minutes, when they drop off, they actually release something called an anticoagulant. Anticoagulant. It's a chemical, and the chemical stops you from clotting, your blood from clotting. So you could bleed for up to 10 hours even after the leech has dropped off. And even today, first aid can't stop the bleeding. You'd have to go and see the hospital to stop the bleeding. There's a bit of interesting knowledge for you. So if you hop in the river anytime, watch out for them leeches. Not good for you. Let's go into... Oh, I almost forgot. Here's a cure for you. Coffee. Yeah, apparently the caffeine was medicinal and it was good for you. Now, coffee was found in coffee houses. There was lots of them, but they could only be visited by men. Ooh, double standards. Yep. Women were banned from coffee houses, even for medicinal purposes. But coffee was a good alternative to alcohol, and instead of going up for an alcoholic beverage to discuss business, a lot of politicians and various high society people used to go and drink coffee. And unfortunately, ladies and gents, it wouldn't be lattes and cappuccinos, it would just be black, bitter coffee. There you go. Now we're going to the Georgian period. So, the Georgians. Now, some of us are feeling a bit sluggish, aren't we? And we really want to shift the old pounds. We've gathered some pounds in the last few months, haven't we? And so we want to lose weight. So in the Georgian period, it was you had to be very slim. It was fashionable to wear very, very tight-fitted corsets for girls if you're feeling the pinch, or even the gentlemen who also wore corsets. If they're starting to get a bit porky, then they need to go on a diet. But a diet is a bit ugh. So instead, you're going to get yourself some weight loss pills. They're not like today, though. These weight loss pills contained tapeworms. Yep, tapeworms. So you're going to basically take pills that contain little worms that eat away at the food and everything in your body. But the problem is, it doesn't just eat away at that. It eats away at lots of things and eventually causes you severe brain damage, meningitis, lots of other nasty things that came along with it. So you didn't really want to take those, did you? But yeah, believe it or not, being slim was a big thing, and you would take pills that contained tapeworms. Very, very bad for you. Don't recommend it. Another one was that you'd take tablets that literally used to make you vomit, or you would take laxatives. They were highly recommended with laxatives for ladies who had headaches as well. Apparently laxative is going to help your headache, girls, particularly if you're pregnant. So, pregnant ladies, I'm just going to scroll that up, there we go. Pregnant ladies, you would have lots of laxatives to shed yourself of the evil inside. Not the child, just everything else. Now going into the dentist part. So, if you have a tooth removed, oh dear, that doesn't look savoury, we don't like that, so we're going to have a false tooth. Believe it or not, this false tooth was made out of pottery. Or it was made out of ivory. Unfortunately, yes, animals were killed for the ivory. So they used to make teeth out of those, mainly out of hippopotamus and walrus. And they would also use some teeth from animals, or some children, or from the dead. So usually from soldiers that had died in battle. They're going to pull all the teeth out so that they can keep them in stock, ready for when you have a tooth pulled and you want a replacement tooth. So yeah, not that nice, is it? Imagine having the pot one, like a porcelain tooth, and you bite down on it. It's going to break. It's not going to do you any good, is it? Going back into the dentist, so this is from the Georgian and into the Victorian period. Now, if anybody has been to Beamish is fantastic. It's in County Durham. It is like a really massive outdoor live living attraction. So there's lots of houses that are genuine. They were literally taken down brick by brick and then rebuilt in this area of Durham. And it's called Beamish, and they have houses from like the medieval period all the way up to, I think they've gone into the 1950s now. And they have in one of these houses a dentist office, if you will, dentist practitioner. And I actually went in there and got told about all the horrible things they used to do. But they had an original dentist chair, and on the dentist chair it had straps around the arms, the front of the chest, and on the legs. Because obviously, again, until the middle of the Victorian period, when we started to bring in things like chloroform and anaesthetic, there was no way to give you any painkillers except for you'd probably just have a drink of alcohol. So they've got to strap you down so you don't lash out at your dentist. And again, they're going to pull out your teeth, they're going to try and do all this work to you with your mouth literally pinned open. And you know when you go to the dentist you don't like it, do you? And you can feel them moving about. Imagine what it was like with no painkillers at all. And here is one mainly for the ladies. I'm sure some gentlemen had it done as well, but I think this is mostly for the girls. Girls, it's your wedding day, or it's approaching your wedding day, and the wedding night, the wedding gift present is going to be coming. You're thinking, oh, washing machine, dishes, clothing vouchers, holiday vouchers, all that, yeah? Oh no! For your wedding gift, you can have every single one of your teeth pulled out and then given a set of false teeth. It didn't matter if you had really good teeth and you were only 16, 17 years of age. You used to get married young back then as well. It didn't matter how old you were, it didn't matter how good your teeth were, but because you couldn't afford the dental fees, and to make you a good wife for your husband, for your wedding gift, or even a birthday present, you'd have all your teeth pulled out. And I believe that this was something that went on well into the 1950s and possibly the 1960s. If you've got any grandmas who they themselves or have known their parents to have had their teeth pulled out, you can ask them about it. So yeah, horrible. Thank goodness for dentists today, eh? Now we're going to go into the other things. So bloodletting, as I've already mentioned, was a cure for various things. But I'm going to reel off a list of cures for you now. So opium, which was a drug, that was used a lot for a pain relief, but unfortunately opium could become quite addictive. So do you know what they used to give you in order to wean you off opium? Cocaine or heroin. Yeah, because that is totally not addictive at all, is it? So to wean you off opium, we're going to give you heroin or we're going to give you cocaine. But opium was used as a pain relief. Lead was not good. Lead was used as a muscle relaxant. Steam was there for relieving a dry cough. Now, funny enough, many of us can still do that today. We get a bowl of water, a towel over our heads and breathe in the steam to try and relieve a cough. That was something they did back then as well. Here's one. Chloroform for hiccups. So if you've got the old hiccups, don't have a drink of water or hold your breath. Just have some chloroform, you'll be fine. Laxatives for chicken pox. So when the kiddies get chicken pox, just give them a laxative. There you go, down the hatch, you'll be fine. Here's a good one. Inhaling smoke for asthma. You can see the problem with that one, can't you? Yep, to relieve asthma attacks, just go and inhale some smoke. Make you feel fantastic or die. Cocaine was a treatment later used for toothache, depression, lethargy, alcoholism, and impotence. Heroin was also used for coughs. Now here's one you've heard me talk about before, but it'd be rude to miss it out on a talk like this. So, there was something called the everlasting pill or the family pill. It's mostly known as the everlasting pill. Now this pill was to help you purge yourself of the evil inside. So you feel like you've got bad guts or there's something evil inside of you and you're going to get rid of it, you're going to purge yourself of it. So you go and buy this family pill or everlasting pill, and basically it was a tiny metal pill. You're going to go home, swallow this pill, and bear in mind metal doesn't digest. It might let off some horrible chemicals in your body, but it's not going to digest. And as it's going through the body, it's going to make you feel quite rotten. But mostly, yes, it does the job. It clears you out of everything. And when you finally have had a clear out, you've then got to look for this pill. So when you've done the business, you're then going to rummage around in your poo, find the pill, clean it up. That'll do. Clean it up, put it in back in its little case, and then you leave it on the side until somebody else in the family feels a bit, and they need to purge themselves. Yeah, okay, no problem. Here, take this. I want it back. Keep it in the family pill. Yes, it's not what you thought it was it? So these are the horrible treatments we used to have. Now here was something called spit your words out. Sorry. This was something called the Malvern. I think that's how you say it. Malvern method, and it was basically called a water cure. Today it's called hydrotherapy. But back then we used to think, oh no, we need to cure you from whatever ailed you. Usually it was stress and depression, or you just needed to feel a bit more awake, cure a bit of lethargy. If you're feeling lethargic, it'll cure you from the fatigue. Or also to cure hysteria. This one was later used in asylums. But basically, you have to be very, very wealthy, and you go to what is basically, essentially, a spa. And they're going to wrap you up in blankets that have been doused in freezing cold, ice cold water. And you're going to be wrapped up, shivering away, and you're going to be shivering for several hours in this blanket, or this bedsheet. And then, when they're finished, unwrap you, pop you in a bath, and then chuck ice cold water on top of you. It was said to relieve stress, pores, and improve circulation. Now, while this is true, it does make the pores shrink, and it does definitely improve circulation. It's actually quite bad for you if you haven't got a good heart. It can induce a heart attack, so don't go and try it unless you're incredibly in good health. And what are the long-term benefits of it are probably not very long-term at all, so don't recommend it on a regular basis. But usually when you go to a spa, sometimes they do have these cold showers and cold tubs that you can literally dunk yourself in. I can't do it, it's too cold, but yeah. That stemmed from back then. Hair loss. Hair loss wasn't thought to be something that happened with age. It was classed as an illness. They thought you had an illness, and so they had to cure you. And they believed that hair loss was caused from being violent, drinking too much, not enough sleep, and wearing hats far too often. So they used to give you a hair oil with various things inside of it, but unfortunately it didn't cure you. It didn't help the hair grow or come back, and in some cases probably made it worse. Then from the late Georgian period into the early Victorian periods, we're now going to talk about hospitals. Hospitals, unfortunately, in those times were a breeding ground for diseases and infections. They were overcrowded. There was a constant smell of pee, poo, vomit, blood, everything. And there wasn't really any good air. It was all circulating. So the chances were that if you went in, you probably weren't going to come back out again. Some of these hospitals were actually just called houses of death. That wasn't the name that they had above the door. It's just that that's what people called them, houses of death, because you didn't often come back out if you went to hospital. Lots of nurses, they weren't very clean. They'd have dried up pus on their dresses, blood, vomit, everything. And even if they tried to clean it, everything was still in their outfit. So that again wasn't very hygienic when they were tending to you. I'm just going to read a little bit on here now. Okay, I'm going to go into some of the cures now. So to relieve pressure in the skull, if you have a headache or you just have such a high build-up of pressure in your skull, you could go to the chemist and you could buy what looked like a tiny corkscrew. And yeah, you've probably guessed. You're going to go home, and if you can't get a doctor or can't afford a doctor, you're going to have to ask your nearest and dearest to literally drill a hole into your skull and pray that they stop at the right moment. Otherwise, this was carried out in a hospital, and there weren't tiny holes, there were big holes in your skull. You will find some skulls in some museums where there's loads of holes drilled into people's skulls. A very, very dangerous procedure, and again, until the middle of the Victorian period, no painkillers. So this was quite a horrendous thing and quite shocking. Now then, girls, if you got breast cancer, the only cure was, I'm going to try and say this, a mastectomy? Breast off. And what they would do, because they had to do it quickly, because surgery was so dangerous, that there was just no way to cure you or give you pain relief, that's the word I'm looking for, give you pain relief. Then they had to do surgery so quickly, in the hopes that you would be relieved from it. So with the girls, they used to hook them, pull them up, and lance them off in one fell swoop as best as they could. So hook them up and then cut twice to remove your breasts and hopefully cure you from the breast cancer. Unfortunately, it was not good if you had to go through that surgery. So not back then anyway, because there was no painkillers. Another one was belly ripping. This was used to cure madness or a madness in a woman, and to stop, I'm going to use this word, I'm sorry if there's kids in here, to stop masturbation. So, belly ripping, I'm going to cut you all the way across, and they are going to literally rip out bits of your ovaries and things like that, and try and stop you from being basically a woman. Shush, Sebastian. Sorry about the cat. I'm going to try and say this. It's not a lobotomy. We'll talk about that later. This is a lithotomy. I'm sorry if I've pronounced that wrong. It's spelt Lithotomy, in case you want to look it up. This was for the gentlemen. Don't worry, boys, I've not left you out. This is to remove bladder stones. Now, what they did is they got the old chap down there and they rammed a rod straight down, a metal rod down into the old fella, and cut through the muscle of the scrotum. And then they would slide their fingers into the opening to then remove the stone. I think I'd just stick with the bladder stone, wouldn't you, chaps? Because again, no painkillers. Hospitals improved by the 1900s in the respects that people wouldn't die just by going into hospital from diseases and infection. But of course, still, if you had to go to hospital, it was probably game over for you in some respects. But by the middle Victorian period, we had hospitals for everything. So there was a volunteers hospital, so that was more for, I won't say the poor, but just people who could afford to go and pay for some form of help. They had the hospitals for the poor, which was basically the infirmary at the workhouse. Because hospitals could actually turn you away depending on your status or what was wrong with you. In fact, some hospitals could turn you away if they deemed you incurable. So if they took one look at you and thought, yeah, we can't help you, then whatever ailed you, you had to just deal with it or die. They also had asylums. I'm going to quickly say this. Don't be offended if I use certain words and phrases. This isn't me, this is history. Words like madhouse and lunatic. I know some people probably don't like that, but that is what they were called in those times. So an asylum, I'm going to read this out to you that I wrote. There were more hospital beds in asylums than any other kind of hospital in the Victorian times. Those who were certified as being lunatics steadily increased as the era went on. So, for example, patients in asylums rose from 12,000 in 1850. So 12,000 patients in 1850. By the time it was 1870, that number rose to 27,000. By the year 1900, there was 100,000 patients in asylums throughout the country. And only ever a small amount of people ever left them. So, unfortunately, if you got admitted, you weren't coming back out. Sometimes you went in voluntary, and you probably went in voluntary if you was really wealthy. So you probably didn't go into an asylum, you probably went into a very special hospital cottage that was to try and help you feel better. And you probably didn't have to endure the same things that would happen in a mainstream asylum. Unfortunately though, if you went to an asylum, you probably were unwell mentally, or you might have had something like, you might have had autism, you might have had Down syndrome, anything that ails us today that we are highly educated and aware of today, we didn't know anything about back then, and so you were just considered mad. And that is tragic. Some people were perfectly innocent when they went to these places. For example, usually for the girls, hysteria. Hysteria can be that you have an anxiety attack, or you get a bit anxious about something and frightened. That can be anybody. That's what you call mass hysteria. Or somebody has died in the family, you can't cope, and so you're crying uncontrollably, or you're getting to that time of the month. Yes, having periods. Karen, you're right. Ladies, some of us don't deal with our periods very well. We have a horrible pain, and we start blubbering. Hysteria. You're mad. Or if your husband's just simply want rid of you for your dowry, or so that they can have it away with the mistress, they would just get rid of you to the asylum. And when you went in there, you weren't coming back out again. So, yeah, there was a fair few reasons that you would end up in an asylum. And there was a lot of stigma attached to that. And so any relatives that went in, you just forgot about them, you didn't talk about them, you didn't tell people in high society that you had a relative in there. And if you were lucky enough to come out, you didn't talk about it and tell people. Sorry, one second. Now this is quite naughty what I'm about to say, so again, remove the kids if you wish. To help cure hysteria for ladies, they used to cure this by administering a pelvic massage, basically stimulating you down there with an electric vibrator. It probably wasn't as pleasant as what you're thinking. It was probably quite horrific, but yeah, they used to try and stimulate you and make you feel relaxed and relieved from your hysteria by doing this. It sounds to me more like dirty doctors, but there you go. Unfortunately, many patients were chained to walls, or they were tied to beds. They would wear straitjackets, be put in padded cells. They would wear mittens so they didn't scratch the face or scratch at you or attack their fellow, unfortunately I'll say it, they used to call them inmates, so their fellow friends, inmates. Other cures was to induce vomiting or give you an enema, laxative. Cold water treatments, the spinning chair, they'd sit you in a chair and spin you round really fast. If anybody's watched Harlots at all, it's a series that's on Stars. It's on Amazon Stars. And at some point there's a character in there called Quigley, and she ends up in the asylum and they put her in the chair. So you can see this actually being done to a degree. And they spin you round, and apparently it makes you feel really bad. I wouldn't like to try it. Shock therapy, these are things you've seen photographs of and you'll have seen a lot in movies. Shock therapy was a thing. They used to shock you here, give you a shock. And they thought that would cure epilepsy, schizophrenia, psychosis. Unfortunately, it didn't cure it at all. It was quite shocking. Sorry, it was awful. And there's another one that unfortunately was used well into, I think, in some countries, including this one, I think, the 1980s. Lobotomies. I can say that one. Lobotomies to fix and calm a patient or make them more manageable. So basically, in the brain, they're going to get a bit what looks like a hammer and chisel and just hit you with this hammer and chisel into the side of your skull, or just cut your skull and then into the brain. And it's to kill part of those nerves. So you would have memory loss, you'd probably get dementia or just brain damage full stop, and you might be just bedridden forever, or you'd just be wandering around aimlessly, not entirely there. Unfortunately, if you watch One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, at the end, spoilers, this happens to a certain character. So, yeah, it's tragic, but that's the things we did do for a very long time. Obviously, we've now come to realise we don't do that. Other cures were violence, so beatings, hitting them, whipping them, battering them with a truncheon. Lots of nasty stuff used to happen in these asylums. So thank goodness for today's medicine and our better knowledge and understanding. Even though there is still a long way to go with mental health and stuff, it is far better than back then. And there you go. That is basically it. The cures and dentists and medicines and history of hospitals. I'm sorry it wasn't very story-like, but it's just basically to share with you all these horrible things and to basically be grateful. Thank goodness for the NHS. I know it's in a bit of a state and sometimes can wind you up, but at the same time we would be lost without it, and for other doctors and practitioners around the world, as has probably been proven with everything right now. So yeah, woohoo, thank you. Thank you to the NHS. Now then guys, I hope you enjoyed that. Does anybody have any questions? Please do feel free to ask. I will scroll through the comments. In the 80s they used to bathe people in baths side by side. Yeah, I can believe that. If you do have questions, feel free to ask. I will scroll through the comments. But if I miss anybody or it's been blocked, don't worry. I'll unblock it. I've blocked certain words and phrases to keep us safe from the scammers. So I will respond to you. If I miss it for any reason, don't be afraid to drop me a message or an email and just ask me a question, and I'll do my best to answer. If I can't answer, then I might be able to point you in the right direction. When did lobotomies fall out of favour? I think it was around the 1980s. So basically when I was born. Not long ago. Thank you. And also guys, if you enjoyed the talk tonight, it actually took me nearly 3 days to write all that down and find it all, but if you want to donate then please do. The link is attached to this video. But if you can't find the link, I'm going to comment with the link on this talk shortly. Excuse me, hiccups. I've got hiccups. I best have some chloroform. Oh, excuse me. So if you want to donate, please send it to PayPal me. No, start again. I always get it wrong. PayPal.me/Shadows of York. If it doesn't work for you or you struggle with that, then just drop me a message and I'll send you a link, and then you can just drop a donation into there. And thank you so much. They really do help. They've recently gone towards Sebastian's vet bill because he was quite poorly. He's fine now though, he's a lot better now. And who said kitty time? Does that mean you want me to show you the kitties? Well, he has yelled halfway through this, hasn't he? I'll just make sure there's no questions first. And thank you so much in advance to everybody who donates. I'd love to thank you all individually, but sometimes there's quite a few of you and I can't get round to it, or your emails don't turn up. Do I know anything about hospitals dispensary in Duncan Place? I've seen a sign engraved. Oh, Kelly. I'm going to have to look that up. I don't know anything about it. I know somebody who might. I'll look into that and I will tell you. Okay. If I forget, please drop me an email and I will ask the relevant people who will know the answer, and I'll be able to tell you. I actually don't know whereabouts that. I know where Duncan Place is, but I didn't know about the. Oh, I might do actually. I'll look into it. Oh yes, and happy Easter. I hope you have a good Easter, guys. Henry VIII unpleasant personality was probably due to syphilis in his brain. Kerry and whoever asked that, Louise, it was, from what I read, down to the fact that he could have had an injury from the jousting, his jousting accident, which over time caused him to not be very mobile, so he got very fat, he got gout, and so because he was in so much pain, when you're in constant pain, and unfortunately for some of you, and sometimes me actually with various things, Pain can make you quite irritable, and the worse the pain, the more irritable you become, especially if you can't sleep, and that's going to mess with your head, along with, yeah, potentially syphilis as well. Although I don't think he actually had it, because there's nothing that I've found so far about him having the pox and all the other things that went with it. That's not to say he didn't have it in later life, but he might have had some form of STD that won't have helped either. So yeah, he became a vile person, but he wasn't vile to begin with in his early reign, shall we say. Happy Easter. Yeah, thank you very much, guys. I'm pleased you've enjoyed tonight. Jonathan, I saw your comment about your tooth was aching, so get yourself off to the dentist. Right, kitty time. I brought these in here just in case he came and disturbed us, but my other half came along, and I thought he was going to keep him quiet. He obviously didn't do a very good job, did he? It don't matter. He's gone quiet now. We'll go see him, shall we? Oh, right. I'm still alive, but where's he come? Where's he gone? Oh, has he shot past me? Oh dear! Oh, you gone loud again, have you? Here we go, Sebastian. Say hello. Come on, say hello. No. Come on, your public are waiting. We've done this at the end of every video. You've already had some sweeties. You can't have any more. Oh, Merlin, you've come in, have you? Merlin? No, Merlin's not interested. Merlin, come on. Oh, stretch. There you go. Oh, he's come. Hang on. Merlin, say hello. No, sniff. Oh, they're just going to rub the phone now. That's it. They're not going to look at you. They're just going to rub the phone. They've gone to the kitty cupboard, so they obviously want more treats. Right then. Thank you very much. I've not got anything ready and waiting for April, talks-wise. I'm probably just going to have a little bit of a break now, because believe it or not, even though these talks go really quickly, it does take a lot of work to make up these little videos. So I'm going to have a little bit of a break in April, and when we're allowed out, probably do what everybody else wants to do and just pop and see somebody outside. Just to see some real people. I mean, it's been lovely doing these videos and talking to you all. It's been a pleasure. But I really need some genuine people to see now, like everybody. And I might do a talk at the end of April, I don't know. Now, somebody might ask, Nunnington Hall. Nunnington Hall has now been recorded. I'm just in the process of tidying it up and making sure it's good enough to publish. I will be publishing it. I'm not going to say it's the greatest video in the world, but it's the best I could do. I've not got lots of equipment to make it all shiny and nice, unfortunately, but that'll be... Yes, Sebastian. That'll be coming out next week, okay? Yes, alright, I'm coming. He's demanding I best go. Yes, alright, shh. Terrible. Right, love you lots. Thank you so much. Tours are starting up again in May. Although I think nearer the end of April we are allowed to do private tours for up to 6 people tops, okay? From no more than 2 households. So if you do want to drop me an email, I only found out about that yesterday. So if you do want to drop me an email for a private tour, then please do. And hopefully, if not, I'll see you all soon. Take care. Bye bye.